Good morning, options traders. Steve Gans here, and I wanted to go over a start to finish trade that I opened here back on May 29th. So this is a trade in NVDA. So when I initially opened this trade, I did a bull put spread, selling a 113 put and then buying a 110 put to give me protection to the downside in case NVIDIA tanked. So this was done on 5/29. So let's kind of flip back, take a look at a chart here, see where we were at on 5/29. So it was right about here is when I put this trade on. So NVIDIA was showing some bullishness. Then it did sell off for a couple days. So for a brief amount of time there, that trade wasn't looking as good. And then we rallied up, broke to all new highs. So let me show you what I did at that point and why, in retrospect, that wasn't maybe the best move and how it impacted my trade. Now, as I'm looking at a chart here too, just ignore this tail. Sometimes you get what's called a bad tick, and that seems to be what has happened here. Usually the brokers will go in and adjust that over time. So just ignore that particular day with that big long tail. I believe that was the day that, excuse me, the day that they split as well, which could have some impact on the way this looks. But regardless, let's come back here to option strat. So this is the trade that I proposed on 5/29. That trade having been left in its original format with no adjustment, that trade would be up 1147 or 86%. And it still has some decay to go in it. We can see that we've still got a little bit of potential decay here. And if I look at the profitability, the max profit is 1337. So we're not too terribly far from that. If I were in this trade at this point, I would consider closing it, or I would consider doing what I did previously that I call juicing the trade. That's where I add a call spread to bring in some extra premium. That said, let's look at how that move negatively impacted this trade by comparison. So this trade, again, is up 1142. Now, how I modified this trade is I came in here on 6.5 and I added a call spread, turning this into an iron condor. So I sold a call spread to the upside. So why did I do that? Let's go back and we'll look at 6.5. So again, remember, I got into this trade right here, and actually right here on 5/29. Then the market rallied up to an all-new high. So my thought process here on 6.5 was that, yeah, I kind of feel like this thing maybe has gone about as far as it can go, at least in the short term. It had run really, really hard. I mean, this was pre-split, those numbers, but essentially after the split, we've gone from about 75 up to 123 in a very short amount of time here, just a couple of months. So my thinking was that there might not be that much more upside left in this, at least, again, in the short term. So having that opinion, getting up to this new high when people were clamoring for calls, everybody's kind of running, buying additional calls because they are bullish on the stock and they're bidding up those calls. Well, that's when I decided to sell this call spread right here, the 130, 132. Now, doing that, I greatly reduced my downside risk. Again, if you compare these two, my original position had a maximum loss potential of 1662. My revised position, let's get back to, had a maximum loss of 1140. That's because I sold this call spread, bringing in additional premium. But when I did that, I was also adding some upside risk to this trade. We can see that NVIDIA, as it continues to run up, while this spread gains in value, this one is actually losing in value. So my point here is that while I did this with the best of intentions and thinking that we're not going to rally up too much higher, it's essentially negatively impacted this trade. This call spread has acted like a drag on this overall trade. So this trade is up 670 because I sold this additional spread. I put the, I added this call spread into it. And again, that's being negatively impacted as our market goes higher. Where this one, which I never added that negative call spread to, is doing much, much better in this case. But note, it still has that max loss of 1,600, where the other trade only has a max loss potential of 1,100. So I have reduced that if NVDA were in fact to tank at this point. Now, so how does this impact the deltas of the trade? I want to look at that at the Greek. So I can come in the paid version of Option Strat. I want you to notice that this trade is positive delta still. This thing is moving as the stock moves upward. It is improving my profitability in this position by approximately $24 for every dollar that the underlying goes up. My theta is at 12.8, so this is decaying right now at a rate of about $12 per day. So let's compare that to the, shall I say, the juiced trade. So the first thing I want you to notice is that the delta is negative here. So because of this call spread, this trade is going to do better if the market drops. For every point the market drops, this thing is going to gain approximately $32 in value. Theta is in the same general range. If the market drops, that theta is going to get higher, because if we do stay in this particular range between the approximately 111 up to around the 132 range, if we stay in there, theta will actually decay faster, and you'll see that the potential profit in this trade is much higher, again, if we can get back to decay under this tent. So I'm not going to make any change in this position just yet, but I did want to basically do a contrast and compare so that you could see the pros and cons of doing something like this. And in this particular case, that has actually put the brakes on the profitability of this particular trade. It's slowed down the profitability of the trade. And in fact, if we continue going significantly higher here, it can totally wipe out the profitability in this trade. So that's something that I need to just watch and keep an eye on as a trader. So for right now, again, my goal was to basically show you this trade prior to me having juiced it, the term I use, and the fact that it actually would have been much better off had I left it alone versus this, where the call spread is negatively impacting me. So hopefully that makes sense. As always, please, if you like this content, subscribe, give me a comment, hit the like button. Let me know that this sort of stuff is helpful to you, and of course I will continue to produce more of it for you. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.